mothers out there. I want to say Happy Mother's Day. To start out with, I have a picture up here. This picture is really, it's a family picture. And I don't know if you, as if you realize it. Usually, whenever I was growing up, they called, how many of you have heard the word Hojo? Hojo. Howard Johnson. Okay, that's the short name for Howard Johnson. It's a restaurant, but they also had like a hotel and stuff like that. And they had a room that was set up to do family portraits. And I can distinctly remember the day that we went to Hojo to have this done and that. And standing behind my mom is myself and that. And to me, whenever I think about my mom, she lived to be 61 years old. To me, is very young, being that I'm 55. The time I was 41 years old, she was 61. My mom was everything to me. Somebody that I could always bounce advice off of. Somebody that I can remember as a child sitting around the table for dinner, and she would always ask, which one of you boys are going to be the preacher? It's not me, definitely not me. And almost like every month or whatever, she would always say, well, which one of you boys are going to be the preacher? Not me, Mom, not me. Soon to know, here I am today, preaching the message and that. Every week that I went off to college at a Lutheran college up in Minnesota to learn to be a Christian day school teacher for the Lutheran Church. Never taught a day of school in my life, but I did get some awesome education. And every Saturday my mom would call and she would ask one question: how's your love life? See, I went to a college that it was a ratio of girls to guys was like 3 to 1. 3 girls to 1 guy. So she was really hoping that I would find a woman and a wife up there that was a Christian, Lutheran girl. So she was always concerned about my love life and how is that love life. Because she knew that it was important that as a man, that you have a wife that was a Christian and was faithful. And she knew that if I was there, the odds was in my favor to find a Christian wife. I didn't find a Christian wife until I came home and found Linda and that. But like I said, my mom, she was taken to me far too early in this life. She was taken from complications due to breast cancer, to be honest. And also too, growing up, my mom, as you know, was overweight. And as a kid, a young kid, I was embarrassed by it. But later on, probably as I got into a senior in high school, whatever, I realized, that's my mom. I don't have any other mom but that one person. So your attitude sort of changes, and that usually as you're growing up, and kids, they tend to be rebellious. They tend to be on their own mindset. Sometimes they're embarrassed by their parents. But you have to realize it is your only mom and dad that you will have. And it's today that I really want to talk about a day for mothers. And that's with our lesson today. Where does motherhood actually begin? Genesis chapter 2, verse 21 to 24, it reads, "And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord had taken from man, he made into a woman. And he brought her to the man, and Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." We know Adam and Eve. God created Eve from a rib bone, part of him, not of his head or a bone from his foot, but a bone from his side. Realizing the importance of both man and woman, and as they are joined together, how they should be of one purpose and one thought and one mind. That's what marriage is. But also too with children, comes out of that marriage. Next we look at Jesus and Mary. Another person here, fine example as a mother. John chapter 2 verse 1 to 5, it says, "On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, 'They have no wine.' Jesus said to her, 'Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come.' His mother said to the servants, 'Whatever he says, you do it.'" If you know anything about a Jewish wedding and a feast, running out of wine is something you just don't do. And usually the wine also too, there's plenty of it, but you have the good stuff at the beginning, and then over time you start bringing out the less quality wine. But here, they ran out of wine. And Mary, knowing this, probably it doesn't really say that it was her responsibility to have that wine, but she knew that there was a problem. And she knew who to go to fix the problem, and that was Jesus. And she knew that Jesus would address the problem. And Jesus' response is typical of the son, saying, "Well, what does your problem have to do with me? Why are you making this my problem?" He says, "Woman," pretty much not really addressing his mom as mother, but he's saying, "Woman." But in a sense, Mary, knowing what Jesus is going to do, because odds are she's seen things before that Jesus has done. There's a lot of things that aren't written down, but yet knowing those things, Mary went to Jesus. And Mary confidently told the servants, "You do exactly what he tells you to do." We know through this that Jesus, his first miracle is creating water into wine. And for the wine feast or this wedding feast, that it was made mention that they actually brought the best wine after the initial wine. So what Jesus did was better than just good or okay. It was the best. Then in John chapter 19, verse 25, it says, "Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene." Think about mothers and what they do. Doesn't matter really what you do or how bad that you are or what you've done. in life, your mother is always there, good or bad. But here on the cross, Jesus up there on that cross, looking down, and who is there? His mom. Acts chapter 1, verse 12 to 14. Then it says, and then they returned to Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is near Jerusalem, a Sabbath day journey. And when they had entered, they went up into the upper room where they were staying. Peter, James, John, and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon the Zealot, and Judas the son of James. These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication, with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. This is after the resurrection, which Jesus said, go into Galilee and I'll meet you there. But who do we find here as well? Did you realize that Mary was there in that room? His mother, and also his brothers. Another important fact, that no matter what, good and bad, mothers are there. Let's take a look at some other mothers and granddaughters, or grandmothers and mothers. From Lois and Eunice, in Acts chapter 16, verse 1 to 2. Then he came to Derbe and Lystra, and this is Paul. And behold, a certain disciple was there named Timothy, the son of a certain Jewish woman who believed, but his father was Greek. He was well spoken of by the brethren who were at Lystra and Iconium. Here we have Lois, who is Timothy's grandmother, and Eunice, who is Timothy's mother. They raised him as in the Jewish religion, even though his father was Greek. Think about a marriage of different religions. One Jewish, and if you know anything about Jews, they were to marry other Jews. It was really frowned upon to marry outside of your faith and your belief. But yet, Eunice married a Greek person. The father also didn't object to Timothy being raised in the Jewish religion. The father didn't stand there and object. He allowed the mother and the grandmother to teach Timothy about religion, which is something that's really, really important in life. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5 to 7. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, I am persuaded is in you also. Therefore I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This is Paul here talking to Timothy, talking about his genuine faith. It's something that's real. It's not something that's fake. Something that he learned from his grandmother and also his mother, being taught at home. Again, being of a different faction of a Jewish and Greek, they usually didn't mix very well. Then we get over to the application portion of this lesson today. The question that I posed all the time, and that's part of my lessons and sermons that I preach. How do I? ? You fill in the blank. I can show you a few things But each and every one of us needs to look at this personally. How do I? Proverbs chapter 31, verse 10 to 13 says, who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. This is a question for you husbands. Whenever you go and you search for a wife, something that's more precious than rubies, something that is far beyond any monetary thing that you can think of. A wife that is good and faithful, virtuous. Those are things that as husbands we need to be looking for. Proverbs chapter 31, verse 26 to 30 says, she opened her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is passing. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Again, here from the words of Solomon, reminding us the practical wisdom, the knowledge that it takes to raise a family, how she watches over her household, raising the kids. I can tell you from my personal experience, I take no credit whatsoever for how my two girls came out. I give all the credit to Linda. I was there, yes. I did my part that I felt that was my job and role as a husband. That's to be a provider, to be a leader, to set the example. But it was truly Linda that oversaw everything and kept it together. Think about husbands and what you're to look for in the wife. Also too in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 to 27, it says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that he should be holy and without blemish. But that she should be holy and without blemish. Husbands, it says here, are you willing to lay down your life for your wife? If you're not ready and willing to lay down your life for that person, then why are you marrying that person? Think about it. There's nothing that I would do to make sure that my family and my household is safe and secure. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 28 says, so husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. And no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. Again, what are you doing as a husband for your wives? Are you nurturing them? Are you cherishing them for what you do? Ephesians chapter 5, verse 28, verse 31 to 33. For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This is a great mystery. But I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. All of these things are important as husbands, as men, as young men, that first, our job as a husband is to find a virtuous wife. Someone that you know, who has practical advice, is kind, watches over her household, and cares for the children. Second, we should be calling her blessed. The work they put into the family, the time, the love, the sweat. Some of the things that you also think about mothers do, they worry a lot. They probably worry too much. But they also do a lot of praying. They give advice and counsel, cook, clean, making sure that the family has everything that they need. Third, we need to realize that your responsibility is also laying down your life for her, protection, provider, and encourager, nourishing, cherishing, doing no harm. Think about all those things. And then becoming one flesh, purpose and thought, worshiping together. Respect, love, and serve. Those are things whenever I put my note out there on Facebook this week. What are you doing as a son or a daughter? Are you showing respect and love for your mother? That is the only person that you have left. That's your mom. What are you doing? And overall, we are blessed by our mothers, and we should show our love unconditionally to them. Hopefully this will help each and every one of us and say, well, how do I show respect? How do I show my love unconditionally to my mother? How do I, as a husband, do I do my role and my part as an individual? Each and every week that we gather together, we always offer an invitation. This invitation is for you to take this message this morning about a day for mothers and to spend your time honoring them and the work that they've done for the family. I really think that if my mom were still alive, I'm kind of glad that she was taken early, because by her taken early, it required me to develop a relationship with my dad. And every time I called the house, didn't want to talk to my dad, I wanted to talk to my mom. But it also, too, that foundation that she laid by asking questions, guiding me, directing me, giving me the advice that I need, helped me to be the person who I am today. Your invitation is the same. We can always look back at our mothers that we've lost and realize how truly blessed that we are, that we had outstanding parents and mothers. And if you have a mother today that's still alive, thank her. Give her up. That's your mom. If there's anyone here this evening that's subject to the invitation, would you come forward? We stand and sing the song of invitation.